Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm Leah Belsky, CRO of Coursera. We have a little audio feedback, so I'm just going to pause here for a second. Connor, I'm getting some feedback. Are you hearing it okay on the other side? Okay, great. So let me get in. So welcome everyone to today's session. In today's panel, we'll talk about how leading organizations are partnering to train and upskill job seekers who are most in need. We're having this discussion in the context of a rapidly changing workforce, where new technologies are automating and displacing jobs. And if you heard Jeff's keynote this morning, you heard a lot about the way in which tech is impacting both work and learning. According to both McKinsey and Oxford, adults without formal education making non-livable wages are often doing jobs that are much more at risk of being displaced. So we're going to look at how Accenture, Goodwill, and IBM, all of whom teach on Coursera, are also evolving their training and hiring practices to consider these job seekers. So with that, I'd like to officially welcome our panelists to the virtual stage. We're joined here by Lydia Logan, VP of Global Education and Workforce Development, as well as Corporate Responsibility at IBM. Welcome, Lydia. Steve Preston, the President and CEO of Goodwill Industries International, and David Chestnut, Associate Director of Technology Learning at Accenture. So I'm going to let each of these panelists introduce themselves in a minute, but before I do, I want to share a video that sets the stage for our discussion today. The video you're about to see tells the story of three amazing women, Shahira, Chelsea, and Kara. And through Goodwill, these women were given access to Coursera and specifically to the Google certificate programs in IT and in project management. They were then hired by Accenture and Google at the end of their learning journeys and brought together to share their story with others. So let's hear it.
My life was completely disrupted when my husband was sentenced to life in prison.
I was in domestic violence situation with my ex-husband. He got everything from me.
I survived what would have been life or death. And I chose to make a life-changing decision by walking into a Goodwill, asking for some help. And when I walked out, I was handed an opportunity.
Most people know Goodwill for its stores. And we have not only those stores, we have 650 job centers.
We want them to find a job and then a better job and then a career.
To imagine myself in a career opposed to just a job was definitely far-fetched.
My kids very proud of me. They know that I was working very hard just to change our life.
We know just how much that you've experienced because we've been exactly in your shoes. You fought for you. My sister, you made it and you're still making it. And you're still doing amazing things.
Thank you.
Accept that. Oh my goodness.
The journey has changed my life in a way that I could have never envisioned. So for any young girl out there that's never seen a Black woman in tech, baby, this is what it is. And you can do it too.
So thank you to Shahira, Chelsea, and Kara for sharing your story. And they actually created a much broader film that tells about that journey. So David, Lydia, and Steve, welcome. To kick us off, we're going to learn a lot about your professional work and what each of you do. But before we do that, I'd love to actually give the audience a chance to get to know you a little bit personally as well. So can you just actually share, when of your career have you had to reskill for a new role personally? And how did you acquire those new skills?
Well, I'll jump in then. I spent most of my career in business. I started out in finance, then moved into kind of corporate leadership. Then I moved into government leadership, and then into nonprofit. And I think the big shift I made when I was going from being a finance professional, first a banker and then a CFO, into the top job. And I went through a program, extensive leadership program called the Center for Creative Leadership, where it's kind of like this leadership boot camp. And even though it's different than the skilling we're talking about today, it was a time for me when I was required to look at myself in terms of what it would become to be a different kind of leader, moving from a finance professional to an overall leader. And it really made me take a step back and think about how I led, who I was, how I motivated people. And importantly, I think much of the skills training we do helps individuals think about who they are in the workforce and their own effectiveness. And so I think that's there, even though it's a little bit different thing than a lot of what we're talking about, there's some interesting parallels there.
Thanks, Steve. What about you, David?
So it's funny. I mean, interestingly, the job I think I had to reskill most dramatically for was the one I'm doing now. I come from a tech delivery background. As a part of Accenture, I was a solution architect that was delivering technology solutions to our clients, and decided I needed to do something different. And I started teaching people in the technology that was my discipline, Salesforce. But I learned very quickly that there's a whole art and science and sort of this beautiful alchemy that is learning. And I had to learn, and luckily I work at a place that cares a lot about it. And I learned from some great folks there that learned one-on-one. I learned through obviously content, providers like Coursera and others. But really it was getting out, talking to the people that are the experts, letting them be experts and learning about them. And so now that I get to, I think it gives me a great deal of empathy and sometimes sympathy for the people that are out there still delivering every day, being asked to be an expert in something that came out last week. And how do I, me and my team, how do we best prepare them for those situations? So yeah, that's still learning every day in this job. So it's a lot of fun.
And Lydia, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your career journey.
Yeah, I have worked in philanthropy, I've worked in public policy, and I've worked in the nonprofit and association world. I've constantly had to reskill in order to take advantage of any new opportunity, whether it's learning new tools or processes or the way that different organizations work. IBM is no different. I've been here now just about 2 years as the Vice President for Global Education and Workforce Development. And I'm learning every day. We have something called Think 40, where every IBMer does 40 hours of learning a year. So we very much have a learning culture that leads to the lifelong learning culture that I think we all talk about.
Thanks very much. So let's turn now to your professional careers and what you're doing now. I'd love just to set the stage for you each to share a little bit about key initiatives that you're driving at your organizations right now that you think have the most potential to enable underserved individuals to get into the workforce. Lydia, do you want to share first?
Sure. We have a program called SkillsBuild, which is at skillsbuild.org. We made a commitment to skill 30 million people by 2030. We're working with partners all over the world to deliver the program. One of our primary partners is Coursera, so it's fantastic to be here. Our cybersecurity and data analyst gateways are very popular. We are not only trying to make sure that we're broadening access to the technology careers and to increase the technology talent pool, but make sure we're meeting people where they are and give them the opportunity to engage with content, learn and earn digital credentials that will help them directly with employment or getting promotions.
Thank you. And David, what about you?
So when I think about that, I mean, we do, obviously we're a global company, just like the other companies here. And there's things we do in particular regions and geographies where I think different groups may be slightly more at risk or more be non-traditional. In the US, we have a couple of great initiatives on, looking at, economically disadvantaged or historically disadvantaged folks and getting them into these sort of pre-made skilling programs that drive them forward. We do a couple of these in Europe. We do a couple of these in our growth areas in Latin America and Asia Pacific region. Really the idea though, the big thing for us is, as folks that are here, is this concept of work-learn fusion. The idea that the work becomes so much more, when we think about our learners, it's all about what is the work they're doing? What is the work we're trying to enable? And what's that next piece of work they want to do? and it's sort of durability built in, right? It's pre-built context. So you're already in there doing this level of work. We've gotten sort of formal training to get you to that place where you're comfortable and easy. But then how do we infuse that intentionality into those day-to-day work experiences that say, you know what, I've got 5 minutes here. Let me reflect on what I just did and maybe make that a little more durable, or consume some micro learning that's relevant to the meeting I'm about to have. And that's where providers like Coursera and others help us with those little injections of micro learning right at the point of need.
And Steve, tell us a little bit about your focus.
Yeah. So, we've been a workforce development organization for 120 years. And so this is kind of what we do. We've helped millions of people through skilling and job readiness programs. In the last year and a half, in the last 5 years, we've helped about 1.5 million people get digital skills alone. And that number just keeps going up. And that'll continue. But for us, it's not just about helping people get the skills. It's about helping people with challenges succeed in that journey to get those skills, to land the jobs, and to change the trajectory of their lives. Over 80% of the people we serve have a high school degree or less. So a really critical part of moving forward for the people we serve is providing them with human support to succeed. And we do that through career navigators or career coaches. And those are people who, when somebody comes in to see us, we can assess where that person is in terms of their skills, their job readiness, and the other areas where they need support. We can understand what their goals are and how those relate to opportunities in their job markets and sort of what it will take for them to avail themselves of it. And then figuring out how to support them throughout that process so that they can complete the process. Because, many of the people we serve have never been through a skilling program. They don't know how to access supports. They haven't really seen those pathways before. And they may be looking for jobs in sectors that are completely foreign to them. And giving them the right support, which often involves things that are somewhat different than direct providing of skills, is absolutely critical to their success. And as a result, we continue to invest in and expand our own career navigators, and in fact, increasingly helping the industry build career navigators, in part through our partnership with Coursera.
Thanks. So Steve and Lydia, you both have talked a lot, and you also talked in our pre-session about really trying to expand the types of learners who have access to educational opportunities. And I think you're doing that through SkillUp, Lydia, and certainly David, with 80% of the clients you are serving. How well do you think companies on the other side are doing and actually having an open enough aperture that they'll take non-traditional hires and interview them and hire them? Are we doing okay on the hiring side? What do you see those filters doing vis-a-vis the type of training that you're trying to drive?
I certainly see that there's interest in a skills first approach to talent, and that's growing. IBM has eliminated the 4-year degree requirement from 50% of our US job postings. And so for us, it's a priority. We're not only looking at eliminating the degree requirement, but retraining hiring managers so that they know how to write job posts, how to review candidates, and making sure that the applicants don't hit that, what people are calling the paper ceiling, just because the job requirement has been removed from the posting. You still need to do deeper work. We've been, through our talent acquisition and HR teams, we're working with partner companies on what it takes to do this work and to create and operate different programs around it. So through corporate social responsibility, we have SkillsBuild, and we're doing training for free and digital credentialing, but we also have apprenticeships and returnships and internships. I think if we're really going to be serious, we have to look at multiple avenues and not just one, and then think about who the partners we need are in order to do this work well. IBM's a large company. We're able to operate those kinds of programs on our own, but you may need an intermediary in order to best serve the people you're trying to attract.
Got it. And when you say an intermediary, like what would be an example of an intermediary?
So we work closely with, for instance, Franklin Apprenticeships, and they help to design and run the apprenticeships that we have and work with us on, what are all the elements that we need to have in place, whether that's mentors who are IBMers who are part of the package that we have for apprentice apprentices. But for other companies, they may need deeper help or, other kinds of ways to put those programs in place.
Makes sense. And David,
Yeah.
tell us before we go to you, actually, Steve, David, tell us about how you think Accenture is doing on this front. And then Steve, I think it'll be great to get your perspective from someone who's trying to help people get into companies like IBM and Accenture.
So in a similar vein, I mean, we're looking at, places where 4-year degrees aren't just, they're not the standard currency anymore. And when you think about those opportunities and those places where it makes total sense for us to remove them, we're doing that pretty much across the board. The aperture, I think, is definitely opening up wide. One of the big areas that we're most excited about now is the hiring of neurodiverse talent. What we're finding is a lot of neurodiverse talent becomes exceptionally great when they are given the right tools, the right accessibility, the right enablement, and we put the right training that's built for their particular challenges or their particular advantages. Being a neurodiverse person myself, there are some accommodations that I have at home that have really helped. And that's one of the big ones for us that I think is an exciting market. It just takes a little bit of awareness and a little bit of accommodation. And Accenture is really trying to get into this pathway of being talent creators, not just full talent consumers, as I think a lot of us, and especially in the professional services industry, we have a knack to be, which is we need 100 people that are smart about this thing. We go get them. But now, as we know, they're not there. So the skilling engine becomes that much more important, and looking at all pockets of folks that are maybe not one step away from where we want them, but it's 2 or 3 or 10. And how do we best get them there?
Thanks. Steve?
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that in that video, Shahira, with the 4 children who was homeless, has a job at Accenture right now because of those programs. So we're excited about that. We've seen a lot of action over the past couple of years with larger companies, especially like the ones we're talking with here on the panel, focusing more on skills rather than just using degree requirements, which historically were kind of a screening tool, but not necessarily related to the actual skills you needed. And what we found is that companies have become much more committed to rewriting their job descriptions to be much more specific about what they need, to limit those degree requirements where they're not necessary. And as a result, a number of things are happening. They're expanding the labor pool, obviously, which is critical in this job market. We still have 10 million unfilled jobs in this market, and this really kind of opens up the labor pool for people. It also allows companies to get a lot more precise about what they really need in that job description. And by doing so, we found that hiring managers are focusing much more closely in on those critical measures for success. And it also helps candidates see themselves in those roles. So rather than saying, well, there's a knockout punch over here, I see the skills exactly, and I know I can do that, or what I need to do to be able to get that. So the candidate match can be better. And very importantly, it helps companies build more diverse teams to improve their culture, because people of color have been disproportionately screened out because of these requirements in the past. And obviously that has so many business outcomes that are positive, so many employee engagement outcomes that are positive. So it really, I think it enriches, the corporate culture as well as their team in many ways if you do that.
It's sort of equity by design, right? I mean, we're building in when it really is about the skill. And it really is about what can you do or what can you get to. Like it really is, it sort of adds equity right into the formula. And it's, you don't have to spend hours and hours training people out of, unconscious or conscious bias. We're getting to the meat and we're adding equity into the equation. I love hearing that. So thanks for bringing that up.
For sure. So, but it's not easy to take out some of those traditional proxies. This morning in Jeff's keynote, he launched what we call the Coursera skills profile. And our sense was that, there's tons of ways in which people can show a resume, but there's actually very few ways in which candidates have, outside of credentials, a way to say, I have these specific skills at this level of proficiency. And so we launched this. It's our attempt to actually give anyone who learns on Coursera a way to showcase their skills for employers. But assuming that doesn't exist, how does it work in practice, Lydia? How do you train hiring managers to assess for some of these more specific skills that they might otherwise just looked at a degree for as a proxy?
Yeah, it's not easy. We certainly have a lot of people in HR who are thinking about this all the time. We go through internal IBM training called Fit to Hire. So it's very intentional at IBM. I think right. It's thinking about the questions that you're asking during the interview process, as well as the job description itself and how the job description and the skills underlying that job description align with the job you want people to do, and start to line up those questions and ask them, what in their experience will demonstrate the skills that are tied to the job description. So it is, a connecting the dots process, and it does require a lot of constant attention, but it is certainly possible with focus.
Yeah. And David, you talked about specifically about like hiring neurodiverse candidates. Are there specific types of like screens or assessment? I mean, how is Accenture intentionally opening up its hiring filter to take into account that population?
So a lot of times we're working through intermediaries. So we're working through third-party firms that are potentially sourcing and helping us screen in better ways. But also, as soon as that accessibility flag is clicked, that hey, I need a little bit of accommodation. The request for accommodation is very prominent on all of our job applications. Of hey, I might need to do this face to face, or I might need some help, because I'm not great on cameras or whatever it might be. There's that accommodation request is built right into the hiring flow and right into the recruiting flow. And then from there, it's a matter of, okay, now we find someone who has maybe been trained in this particular, to have these interviews or have these conversations initially. And then we see how that might relate into the actual job itself.
Right. David, Steve, is neurodiversity and enabling like neurodiverse learners or job seekers a topic that you've had to engage with and reckon with at Goodwill at all?
Certainly. Yeah, we work with people that have a very broad range of traditional challenges in getting jobs, and working with them both through developing their skills in a certain way. In some cases, and I really appreciated what David said earlier, some people we're talking about in this particular category, because it's very broad, are actually like really gifted in ways that are often under-recognized. And so really kind of making those assessments and connecting the dots can be one of the most important things you can do. And we've seen some really wonderful stories about people that have been hired into jobs that were uniquely connected to their strengths, their under-recognized strengths, and just seen remarkable outcomes because of it. And it's all about building an understanding and assessing, people's gifts as well as their challenges.
And do you find that, just pushing this thread of neurodiversity, because I actually think it's a newer conversation, but super relevant for lots of people. Do you find that, like particularly with the population that you're working, do people know their strengths and weaknesses well enough to be able to say, hey, I need a combination, or hey, I'm neurodiverse? Like, it strikes me that I'll just leave the question at that.
I mean, we're starting to see more people take more agency over their whole being, right? I understand I'm showing up as a person that it used to be about showing up and being comfortable looking a certain way or presenting a certain way outwardly. But now we're seeing a lot more people understand and take agency over the fact that my brain works differently, and that's okay. And what we're starting to see is, so yes, in certain populations, there's a hand raise, I need an accommodation. The other thing that we're starting to look more at is when we talk to people, the interview questions, kind of going back to earlier, it's not about necessarily what can you do right now? Do you have 10 years experience doing this exact job? It's what do you love to do? What are the things that excite you? What are the things that you like to? I love to solve puzzles. Okay, well, let's see what that proximate skill or that 1 step, 2 step, 5 step away from what perfect job translates to that. And that's something that we're spending a lot of time. We have a great tool called Talent Talent Pulse that really helps us with proximate skills. So if I'm good at one particular technology, it's probably a short jump to another one, but also with what we call like the power or the other, what used to be soft skills. If I'm great at being in customer service, I might become a great business analyst. If I'm a musical person, chances are I might be a good developer. And so we're learning more and more about that. One of the nice things about being a company of 700,000 plus folks is we get a ton of depersonalized data to help us get better and better at making this a place for everybody.
I think one of the really important things, especially for people looking to think differently about hiring, is there are so many assessment tools in the marketplace right now. There are companies like yours that are helping people design assessment tools for unique roles, and getting those insights are great tool. And that's how we start. Somebody comes through the door, we go through a number of assessments, so we know the kind of support the person needs, right? And how to help advise them and tool them going forward. And that really, I think, just unlocks a picture for the trainer or for the hiring manager to say, okay, I get this person's gifts and strengths. I get maybe where we need some development. We get where the pathway is, and we can actually go into this situation a lot more informed and a lot more productively.
Yeah, I agree. We have an assessment with SkillsBuild, and people want to know if they don't know what it is that they want to do, whether it's a personality assessment or a skills assessment that helps them get started and gives them some direction and says, based on who you are, this is a pathway to a job that may be a good fit for your personality. Why don't you start here? And so we use something called My Inner Genius that does that for people. But whether you're using the one that we use or another one, giving people a place to start and some information about what a good path might be is critical, because otherwise they're sort of out there in the sea of opportunity and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, makes sense. And we just had an offsite at Coursera last week, and I would say a huge part of the offsite was really talking about what's the future of navigating a learning ecosystem like Coursera, and how could you use something like ChatGPT, or we're creating something called Coursera Coach, so that people can have that dialogue with a coach or an AI or whatever it might be, and start to really interrogate what they might be strong at, and then how that matches with what type of learning and what type of career. So it's interesting to see how you're each engaging it. So stepping back, we've talked about a lot of possible obstacles that people face to getting jobs. And I know your companies have also done a lot of research on this topic. Can you actually share some of the research that you've done on obstacles for job seekers, and then how your companies have helped navigate these obstacles?
Yeah, well, we actually undertook a fairly extensive research project 11 months ago. Actually, it was May of last year, specifically to understand job seeker experiences in the marketplace. And what we did was we asked people, what some of the biggest challenges that they had in getting a job were, and what kind of support that they would need. And very much across the board, skills was listed as a huge issue for people. And we said, so when we said what kind of help do you need to go forward, it was not surprising. A very significant percentage of people said, I need job-related skills for those jobs, and if I could get them for free, I would actually avail myself of the opportunity. So job-related skills. Number two, a lot of people, because of where they are in life and what their experiences have been, have said, I need help like career pathing and planning and figuring out what the right opportunities for me. Like, I really don't know how to navigate this system and what the possibilities are. How do I figure out to get from where I am today to where I'm going? And then the third thing people told us in fairly high numbers was that they needed help preparing to be successful in the recruiting process. How do I prepare for interviews? How do I write a resume that really highlights my skill? How do I become ready the day I walk into that job to succeed in ways that aren't necessarily related to hard skills? The other thing we've seen, and I'm sure many of you have heard or read about these factors, is increasingly we're seeing secondary factors as challenges for people, like transportation and getting to jobs, childcare, internet access, and even kind of spiking issues around mental health and anxiety. So these other factors that affect a person's ability to be successful in the workplace, which don't necessarily relate to skills, these other factors are have been pretty persistent challenges as we've seen it in the marketplace.
We did a study last year with Morning Consult, 13 countries. And what we learned is 40% of students say the greatest barrier to professional or technical skill development is that they don't know where to start. So going back to the conversation that we had earlier, making sure that we have opportunities for them that get them grounded in an assessment or something that gives them that place to start. 60% of respondents said they worry that digital credentials may be too costly to obtain. So they don't know about some of the great options, these partnerships that IBM has with Coursera, where they can have access at low or no cost. They don't know about ways to use, whether it's government funds that can support some of the training that they can receive. So making sure we dispel some of these myths that are keeping great talent out of the workforce when these are the people we're looking for. And finally, I'd say they're, concerned. 61% said they are not qualified to work in a STEM job because they don't have the right academic degrees. So as much as we are in rooms like this, having conversations about the importance of skills and obtaining skills, we still have work to do to make sure people know you don't need a degree in order to get a job, a STEM job, whether it's in a tech sector or a STEM job, in another sector. So I think, the more that we can get out and make sure people know what options are available to them, the programs that we have, the opportunities available to them, and the support. We work through partners, and the reason that we do that, we are focusing on women, veterans, economically disadvantaged populations, underrepresented minorities in tech, refugees, and neurodivergent people. But we work through partners who know them best. And we've got to spread the word that there are opportunities, there are companies that are here to help them, and programs that are free and available to them now.
I think that's so beautifully said, Lydia. And I think it really does underscore the scope of the challenge, that we can make all these changes in the education we provide or the way we hire. But if learners and job seekers don't actually know about this, it's hard to create a great impact. I want to go back a little bit to something you talked about earlier as well, when we were talking about the hiring filter and aperture, which is apprenticeships. And it's also something that each of you mentioned in our prep conversation. So, Lydia, what is an apprenticeship, and how are apprenticeships a big thing in U.S. workforce development? Is it a big thing at IBM? Can you educate us all? Because I think
absolutely to both. So I think many people are probably aware of apprenticeships in the context of skilled trades, where you are learning with an expert on the job and earning money while you are learning those skills. Other countries were ahead of us in the United States, but we really have learned that in the context of seeking great talent, making sure that they're prepared for jobs for which they are qualified and have an aptitude and a desire, apprenticeships are a great pathway. They are earning and learning at the same time. They're often, it's a full-time job opportunity. They're inside a company, they're learning that culture, they're paired with people who are experts, and they're getting that deep knowledge and experience at the same time that they're preparing for a career pathway. So the Department of Labor in the US made a big call to corporations and said, we want you all to think very seriously about apprenticeships and the role that they can play in getting people to work, expanding our technology talent pool. In the US, many of you know the cybersecurity job shortage. We've got, 700,000 unfilled cyber jobs, which is one of the reasons our partnership with Coursera around cybersecurity training is so popular. We have a cybersecurity apprenticeship as well at IBM, and that's a 12-month apprenticeship. It's recognized, it's a registered apprenticeship with the Department of Labor. It's been reviewed by the American Council on Education and comes with a 45 college credit recommendation, 45-hour college credit recommendation. It's a great opportunity for people to earn, learn, and in many cases, may receive college credit or recommendation. So if they decide they want to go get an associate's degree or continue to pursue a degree pathway, they're not necessarily choosing one or the other. We know that people are not going from high school to college to work. People may have been working, they may be sector or job switchers. Apprenticeships are great options for people like that.
And when you do the apprenticeship, and I'm just make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what these are and the facts. So you said 12 months, you can get credits towards the degree. You're also working and getting paid. And are you studying as well? Like, is there a curriculum?
No, you're learning on the job. So it's the apprenticeship itself. So it's not going to class. It's different from, we have co-ops as well. That's sort of part-time work and part-time school. That's a different program that we have. And, some apprenticeships look different. They're not all of them are 12 months. Some of them are shorter and may come with fewer college credits. Not every company that offers apprenticeships has them reviewed for college credits, but we would encourage that combination because we want to make sure that people are continuing to move forward in their career journey and that we're not closing off any doors to them. So if they choose to go back to school or go to school, they have some credits in their pocket. If they don't, that's fine. That's their choice. But we shouldn't have people starting back at zero every time they go to the next step. They should be able to continue along their journey.
That's David and Steve, are apprenticeships something that you have built into your strategies as well?
Well, I mean, I'll jump in. I mean, yeah, traditional apprentice programs in the way they're named, the way you're describing them, we do in quite a few of our markets. North America, we've got one we've done. I think it's 2,000 plus apprentices to date. It's been around since about 2016. We're doing more and more in that space, but I think what really the consulting model has always been a bit of an apprentice program or an extended apprentice program. You come into the company very junior. Typically, most folks have been at that analyst level, and they're learning. But what they're doing is that sort of tried and true method of education, exposure, and experience, where we get them some initial training, some formal training to really get things started. Then we get them into a project setting or a business development setting or a setting where they're learning from other experts around them. So they're in that exposure mode. And then there's experience where they're applying what they're learning in the moment, getting it really becoming durable. So it's funny when we talk about apprenticeships as something new, because for us, it feels like that's the way we've always taught our folks. But when we think of it in the True Apprentice series, we're doing that too. I think we're in a very similar situation to Lydia, where if there's a way to get a smart, capable person that wants to learn and wants a job in the door, we're figuring out a way to get them in the door. Some folks are a further walk away, and we've got to change some of our processes to get there. But it's funny, all of the things that we're mentioning, all of these different, talent pools and low equity situations where we can bring people up. I think we're exploring all of those in one place or another.
Yeah, I think that just to put a fine point on a couple of things, the earn and learn piece of it is really important. A lot of people need to be making money. They need to make a living while they're going through their, kind of their development program. So that is huge in attracting people for whom learning might not otherwise be accessible. And for adult learners, experiential learning, hands-on learning, especially for many people, is a really valuable way for them to move forward. And it also helps people connect the learning to the job very directly. And those are all really powerful learning pathways for many of the people we serve.
Makes sense. So last question before we go to audience questions. And, one of the concepts you all brought up is that in today's age where skills are changing so quickly, one of the best signals an applicant give to an employer is that he or she is a learner and wants to keep learning. And so, we have lots of different job seekers and learners who are also attending today's conference. And I'm just curious, what advice would you give to people who want to get a job about how they can best signal either their skills or their aptitude for learning to employers?
Well, I think there are right. Earning digital credentials and is one way that's great because it doesn't require you to have a degree. It's something that's marketable, and a good credential will have the skills underneath it. So it's easy to see in that framework of what is behind that credential, what you have learned and what you're able to do. So I think, for today's learners, absolutely, sign up and do one of these courses on Coursera and earn your digital credential, create your portfolio. You can take that with you for the rest of your life to demonstrate that you are a learner. I talked about IBM and Think 40. We are earning digital credentials as IBMers all the time throughout the year. So I think the way that you can talk about yourself, the skills that you're acquiring, the interests that you have, and then showing that you've taken action by pursuing those and learning and earning, credentials is a great way for you to demonstrate your interest, your passion, and your skill set.
I had an applicant one time hand me, in addition to a resume, a learning architecture that they had for themselves. And it was a rough plan, but it was saying, I'm going to read a book once every month. I'm going to listen to these 3 podcasts once a week. I'm going to attend some sort of formal training. And I said, we walked through it and I talked through it and I said, why did you bring this? And they said, well, your CEO, Julie, when she came out, she said the number one thing people can be is curious and be learners. And then Paul Doherty, who's your chief technology officer, says he has his own learning architecture. So I went out and I researched that and I put it together, and I wanted to know what you think about it. And yeah, have a learning architecture, have a plan for yourself. Forgive yourself when you're bad about it, because we all get bad at it. It's just like going to the gym, right? But being able to demonstrate that, and I'm not saying you necessarily have to turn it in with your resume, but being able to demonstrate, one of my favorite questions to ask an applicant is, what's the last thing you learned that had nothing to do with your job? And it gives a really good indication of, number one, it might give us something to talk about to fill up that hour we're going to talk on this interview. But also it gives me an opportunity to understand that this person is curious, that they're learning. And then usually as a follow-up, it's like, okay, how did you learn about that? Oh, well, I talked to a friend. It gives me a little insight as to how they're going to solve problems once they get to the world.
Yeah, Leah, I would actually flip it a little bit and talk about it from the employer perspective, because it is really important to understand how much learning, skilling, and opportunity pathways, really important for employers to understand how important that's become for workers, how much of a tool for attracting people, for retaining people, and then of course finding the talent you need in this type of a labor market. And in fact, Harvard Business Review just had an article in this month, I believe it is. Joe Fuller, who's one of the researchers there, came out with a study that said even with your lower wage workers who are likely to churn because of financial needs, want to be loyal, but a key to keeping them is gaining skills, career pathing, and mentoring. And those are often populations that are not, often looked to for some of these promotion pathways. So as an employer, I think communicating and then being accountable for offering those opportunities, mentoring, giving people career pathways is a huge benefit from so many perspectives in your organizations.
Great. Well, I'm going to turn to some audience questions here and just read them straight. So first one says, industry seeks candidates that will fulfill the skill sets that they are seeking. At my institution, we strive to develop lifelong learning in order to help our students and staff. What can universities do to support the new approach to learning?
We work with a lot of universities that are actually integrating digital credentials into the degree pathways. And I'd say looking at what employers are looking for. So in our case, right, we're not only looking for technical skills, we do look for that, but we're also looking for what some people would call durable skills or employability skills or professional skills, collaboration, communication, project management, the things that may break you in a job, even if you have the technical skills. So universities can think about, do our students have those? Are we building those in? Are we finding ways for them to signal or, earn a credential in any of those that they can add to their portfolio. And when they're going out looking for summer jobs or employment after their degree program, they can say, yes, I have the degree, but I also have these credentials that show what I'm able to do specifically in addition to my specific area of expertise. And I think that's really important to know that there are two parts to that, and everyone needs both.
I would pile on and kind of say, teach people how to take care of themselves. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but one of the things I did not learn in college was that I needed rest, and that my body and my brain needed time to process information, and that taking 18 credit hours in a semester, every semester, is not a good idea, because I'm not going to get as much out of it. It's not about the accomplishment as much as it is about developing what was it, Twain, right? What's taught in our colleges and universities is not an education, but the means of an education. We're teaching people to learn and become lifelong learners. I'm much less interested in what they walk away with on paper than I am with what they walk away with from a ability to take care of themselves and an ability to all of the things that Lydia talked about, which is, the communication, the openness, the ability to collaborate, the ability to work on projects, et cetera.
Yeah, I think increasingly we're seeing statistics that show that people, their perspective of college degree is diminishing in terms of the value it creates. And I think by ensuring that when you get those degrees, you have, those tools to be effective in the workforce, and to continue to succeed in the workforce are really important. I think, both of these sets of comments get to that. It's very easy to say, well, we're providing people with critical thinking and, strong math skills, et cetera, et cetera. But if you show up in the workplace and you don't have a lot of these other foundational skills that help you be effective in the workplace, I've got a son who's a classics major right now. And I said, look, love it. It's great. I just can't have you be functionally illiterate when you leave. So I know you're brilliant. I know you're getting, great grades, but get these core foundations, because when you leave, those are going to be the access points for you to be effective in whatever pathway you choose.
And do you think those sort of foundations are foundations that people should be acquiring in K-12 education, or is that those kind of foundations, the ones you mentioned, Lydia, or what you mentioned, Steve, things that people should be acquiring?
A lot of them, because we can't look at college or even a trade school as a necessary pathway to success. And high schools need to be able to provide young people with skills and tools to be able to leave and get a job if that's the pathway they choose. And obviously, there's only so much you can do, but increasingly, I think you see high schools partnering with community colleges or giving them career pathways so that they're not only getting the fundamentals that they need in high school, in terms of reading and math and those types of things, but they're able then to move toward career pathways for which they are tooled. And most companies most countries around the world think differently about this. They think about kids coming out of high school or that phase of education as being tooled for the workforce, unless they're specifically on a higher education pathway. Very important, I think, for our economy, for our employers, and for the people in our communities.
I would agree with that. The Jobs for the Future came out with their big blur paper, and Secretary Cardona has been talking about pathways high schools as the new model for the American high school that really does marry that high school academics, post-secondary degrees and exposure, credit-bearing courses, and work-based learning to create pathways from high school into careers. We sometimes wait too late to start thinking about what it is that high school students need to be successful. We used to say in school, work, and life, but I think we can do a lot of that. And you can learn leadership skills through sports and group projects. There are lots of ways that you can introduce these skills early on, but you're going to need to have them in order to be successful in the workforce. I think that's something that we can all agree on. At any age, you need to learn them, and they do evolve because some of the tools and ways of working, whether you're doing Six Sigma or Agile, right? There are different levels of them. And so you can continue to gain more and more sophisticated versions of some of these skills for the workplace, but they're not optional anymore.
All right, I'm going to go to another question. This one's going to take us a little bit different direction. So for countries with large populations like India and China, where competition in the job market is high, are global corporations considering the modern online degrees over the traditional degrees provided in universities? So I think, well, I'm not going to interpret the question for you. I'll let you interpret it.
I think, corporations are looking for great talent wherever they can get it. I started saying we're not thinking about degrees versus skills. It's both and. We do a lot of work in India. We have a team there for corporate social responsibility. They work with universities. They're working with the Ministry of Education. They're working with the Ministry of Skills. We're working with adult learners. We're helping to get people into jobs, whether they're with IBM or with other companies there. I think in these large countries, there are a lot of people, but there's also a lot of opportunity. So we need to make sure that the pathways are there, and that as employers in those countries, we are making sure that we're tied into those pathways, whether they're, formal and institutional from a government standpoint, or more informal and the ones that we're working with through, nonprofit partnerships, but that they're ending an opportunity for people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's obviously a large portion of the folks that I serve as well are in India or countries that kind of fit that very broad description that I think that the question asker gave, which is, places where there is just a massive competition for entry level and higher order jobs. Do we look at a degree from Harvard and a degree from an online university or something like that differently? I would love to say that and say no at every single person. Do we? Maybe there are some folks in there, but honestly, what I hear more and more is I want great people. I want a person who understands how to learn, how to take care of themselves. I know I feel like a broken record a bit because I'm going back to some similar points, but we find people that show up and they may be the most immaculate person on paper, but they've not learned to continually reinvent themselves, continually take care of themselves, continually take care of those around them, to sort of be that multiplier of talent within your organization. That's the people that we really, doesn't matter where they went to school or if they did it all. So I would say, even in those countries, and I know it sounds like it's a different world, but even in those areas where competition is crazy high, being an awesome person that makes yourself and others better, that's what shines through.
All right, another question. So why don't more CEOs like Steve lead with learning like he does? Or I think you gave a great example of the Accenture CTO as well. How can more CEOs be more vocal about the importance of learning and not just relegate it to IT or HR?
Yeah, I think this is a CEO level mandate, and it needs to be. And it's because I don't think there's any more important mandate that you can have than about your people, right? Especially in a service economy, and so understanding the value of attracting, retaining, and developing talent, not only as a pathway to provide great services and products to the people, to your customers, but also as a way to create a rich culture where people are thriving. It's absolutely essential, and it's not something you concede to other people in your organization. I do think, looking at the examples of CEOs at major corporations that have taken on this mantle and succeeded because of it, is very important. And I think the proof points are everywhere.
I'd say our CEO is the one who said, look, when we look across IBM at all of the training that we're doing, why aren't we putting a stake in the ground? Why aren't we making a big commitment? It isn't just what we do for IBMers, it's what we do for individuals, society, and for business. That's where our 30 million commitment came from, was from our CEO, and really rallied the troops across the company to make sure that we're driving forward and making it happen. Our ESG report was released this week, and I think we're doing well. So my team and I are happy, but he's certainly leading the charge and saying, we've got to find talent where it is. We've got to create more opportunity. We have to be a leader in the field, expand our apprenticeship opportunities and look for other ways for us to bring our talent and our technology to people who need it and who've been left out.
So I'll just cap that one off with Julie Sweet, who's our CEO. Harvard Business Review was nice enough to sit down with her last year back in May and kind of made a big headline in the fact that she said that the most important skill we look for is the ability to learn. We look for an employee who is, or a new person joining the firm, as the ability to learn is the single greatest skill that someone can have. And so, I mean, we invest over $1 billion every year in learning, and I would say that commitment's definitely there. So I don't know if they're, I don't know if I can compare Julie to Steve, because Steve's out there making the world better every single day. But I would definitely say Accenture has a big learning commitment from the top down.
Yeah, Julie's terrific. We know your organization well. We're impressed by it every day, and really the leadership underneath her is the same way. It's really remarkable.
Great. Well, while you all are speaking, there was a poll that went out to the audience for the panel. And I will also say that usually in these online events, the audience starts and it drops, and we've had no drops. So congratulations for all of you for engaging everyone. But the question asked to the audience was, are most of the skills that you're applying today were they learned in? And the options were A, high school, B, college, 3, on the job, and D, professional training. And 68% of people said on the job. 3% of people said college, and 3% said high school. So I think those answers really illustrate how important the tasks that you all are trying to get people into jobs and get that aperture open, how important that really is. And so I would just ask you one final lightning round as we close out. If there's 1 or 2 pieces of advice you could give to either universities or corporate leaders on this panel on how to do a better job really opening up the apertures to different types of talent, people who are learners and who will succeed in their corporation, any last 1 or 2 pieces of advice would be valued.
Sure. Through the Business Roundtable, we worked with other companies on apprenticeships, and we've got all kinds of resources that we're willing to share with other companies and who are thinking about the same thing. You have to find talent wherever it is and then do what it takes to help to develop them. That will look different for companies of different sizes and in different sectors, but everyone can do something. And so my charge would be to employers, think about what is the right size for what you can do, whether it's an apprenticeship where you've got an intermediary, whether it's mentoring, whether it's, a partnership with an IBM and a Coursera to offer learning to your people and the partners that you have, or whether it's, a university and you're really thinking about how do we bring the expertise that we have to university students and to help them learn while they're in their degree programs. I think we need to blend a lot of these things together and not assume that everything has to stay in its own lane.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lydia. And thanks for all your awesome thoughts and comments. Steve,
Yeah,
David, final parting thought.
I would pile onto that a little bit and just say, look harder to expand your talent pool and consider opening up your thinking about who you will hire, and consider adapting your policies and your practices where it's necessary to do so. Great example is that right now it's Second Chance Month, right? And it's a time when we really work to recognize the value of bringing people who are formerly incarcerated into the workforce. And so much research out there shows that the vast majority of hiring managers and HR professionals would indicate that those companies that are dedicated to doing that find employees that consistently perform as well or better, have better retention rates, are positive additions to the culture. So think differently about who you hire, because your next great hire may be somebody that you completely did not expect.
I'll finish it up with an easy one that just says the world is changing. People are changing. Don't become so firmly held and steadfast in the things that you think are that important. Be willing to give people what they're asking for, and they will move mountains for you. If people want to work hybrid, let them work hybrid. If they want to take agency over where they or how they do their job or how they learn. Give them that space and grace to have that. But as much as you can, give people what they say they need, because more often than not, they know better than you.
Well, thank you, Lydia, David, and Steve, for joining the panel and for sharing all that you've learned. And thank you for your leadership in this space.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us. This was great.
Thanks for having us.